Hey, I'm Lisa.
I'm Chris, and I didn't know you started recording.
Happy Vlogmas!
Every time.
Every
it's
time.
a surprise every day on time.
Every time. I tell you,
works.
I keep saying I'm going to do it every time. I want to find 24 different ways to say it. Happy Vlogmas!
Mm-hmm. Okay. Just pretend that didn't happen.
Okay.
What are we talking about, Lisa?
We're talking about books. Because we're readers. That's just the bottom line. And we will read about technical things and we will read about fiction. So today we're going to talk about books that we have found valuable in our journey or that we are planning to use to continue our journey as fiber crafters.
Now, I felt like I was sitting in a way that made it look like that branch was part of my hair. So it looked like my hair was doing a thing. And so just had to readjust. Okay.
You good now?
Yeah. Okay, so what's this book you're holding?
Okay, what I'm holding in my hand right now is a Knitwear Design Workshop by Shirley, Peyton. Ooh, up close. Right. Yes, there we go. Okay, so is this only for people who design knitwear? Absolutely not. But if you wanted to design something of your own, this would be a great book that could take you through the entire process. But let's just say you want to make sure something's fit. You know, there's a whole worksheet in here for capturing your body measurements and showing you where on your body you need to measure and what that measurement translates to on the garment. Because sometimes you're like, I don't know. If you're not even sure what part to measure to fit a garment, how are you going to make a garment that fits? She gives you a way to calculate yardage, create a sleeve shape that you might want. So all the information that your pattern may not necessarily tell you, you can get from this book.
So my books fall into two categories. Books that have great patterns for beginner garment makers, because when I started, I found them invaluable. And my other categories are my favorite absolute go-to stitch dictionaries. And I'm finally learning to say that. But podcasting has been helping me because now I'm finally able to say stitch dictionary. So my first book is The Crochet Closet by Lisa Gentry. And the first crochet garment I ever made came from this book. And it's actually this jacket on the back. Yes. It's called the belted. I think it's just called something like the belted jacket or something. Very straightforward name. And I put that little tab. Okay, belted pant coat is what it's called. And it did not fit, but I constructed a whole jacket from like someone who has just been making scarves. And so you see there's the little shaping on the lapels there. I've got buttons. I've got belt loops. I did all of that. And so even though my jacket didn't fit, I felt like, holy cow, I might be able to make garments.
Exactly.
And so I've made 4 things, I think, out of this book. So actually, I made this on the cover, and I used the worst yarn ever. I actually think I ripped that one out. And that is called the Puff Sleeves Cardigan. These names are very straightforward.
Yes.
I have also made the classical jacket, and I'm so proud of this one because you see that? Pleats. I did crochet pleats, and I had no idea I could do that. And I'm super excited about it. That jacket had a couple of issues too, but I was still learning. And then I've also made the Something Special cardigan. I think I've actually made that one twice. And each one had its own issues. But the instructions are just really clear and well written. They're very unintimidating for a novice garment maker, but they will also teach you some really useful techniques like making pleats, like using 2 different stitches in the same row to get the puff sleeve shape, things like that. So this is also kind of like a good workshop.
Yes.
So if you were to make like several of these garments, you're going to learn a lot that you can carry forward into your future making. So I cannot recommend this book enough. And this idea of the crochet closet really spoke to me. So see, there's this picture of her like going through a closet full of crochet items. I love that. And that's one of the things that like inspired me to want to actually start making a wardrobe of handmade things. What's your next book?
My next book is Good Measure. It's another book about making garments in general. So it tells you how to use a dress form.
I love that.
How to measure yourself. How to make and measure a swatch accurately.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how to treat your swatches.
All the technical stuff.
All the technical stuff
and
you need
so
to know.
much of that is missing for crocheters. Like you don't see books that are like these books here that I have don't necessarily talk about those things. And so I will be like all up in Lisa's knitting library. You have no idea.
She tells you ways to decide how to place color on your sweater. Like I was talking
Who's the author?
This is Deborah Newton. I actually have a couple of her books. One of the things I'm going to do, I talked about a couple of podcasts ago, is change the striping sequence on the sweater. She gives you a framework for how to do that and how to place color on your garment. It's like sometimes you're trying to use the amount of yarn you have just by color blocking it properly. You don't necessarily have to do stripes. You can use the yarn that you actually have rather than have to go find new yarn.
That's one of the things I'm learning, mostly by trial and error. It'd be nice to have, you know,
a framework. Yeah. And there are also patterns, but it's workshopped and you can learn how to do these like look how she accomplished the shaping. Learn how to do that if you want to. So Good Measure by Deborah Newton. How to measure yourself, how to measure your pieces, and how to make those measurements make sense.
So my next book, great for beginner garment makers, is Urban Edge by Shannon Goldsby. And I love that on the back cover, he just shows you
what's in the book.
Everything in the Digon book. So before you buy it, you can decide if you even like these garments. And I have made, I made this top here. I've made this hooded vest here. And is that it? I think I only made 2 of these. But he's got patterns for cabled items. Again, he's another one where like this will also, it's great for beginners. It's very well written. Everything is clear. And he's got both schematics and stitch diagrams for every single pattern. So you have all the measurements you need. And if you work better from a stitch diagram than you do from the written instructions, he's got you covered. But you will also be able to step up your skills and make different shapes and use a lot of different stitch patterns. Again, this is just another book, Urban Edge by Shannon Goldsby, that I cannot recommend enough. And I think even though like I feel like can I say I'm a little past this skill set maybe?
Yes, absolutely.
I think I would still make some of these just because they're really cute. They're
well,
really nice
knowing
designs.
you'd make some variation. Yeah.
Yeah.
My next book is Sock Architecture by Neal. So what this book does, it teaches you that socks are a modular garment. You can swap out any toe, heel, or construction method you'd like for any other. And when I was making a lot of socks, I would just try different heels, different toes, top down, toe up. You know, there's a good discussion on measuring your foot and figuring out, you know, what size you are for a sock. But one of the things that this book taught me was that I don't need to make a whole sock just to try making a part of a sock. So when I
find those pictures of just the heel of a sock hilarious.
Yeah. When I taught people how to make socks and we would just focus on the heel, I would teach them just make a heel and try out that heel technique. You don't have to just make a whole sock in order to try out the heel. You don't have to make a whole sock to try out the toe. And just seeing this, I was like, oh my gosh, look at what an idea. So you can try several different toe styles. afterthought heels, or just all kinds of things. So if you want to figure out what heel or what toe or what style of sock suits you best, a book like this that can take you through a whole bunch of options is amazing. And she gives a really concrete discussion of why each heel works for a certain type of foot. Because if you've made socks for yourself or anybody else, feet are interesting to say the
Highly
least.
idiosyncratic.
Yes, feet. Yes, every foot does its own thing. So if you have flat feet or high arches, it makes a difference in how your sock is going to fit, and it will make a difference to the type of alterations you want to do to your sock. And once you know what fits your foot, you can just whip out whatever it is you like. So definitely Sock Architecture by Laura Neal.
Okay, so my last book for beginner garment makers is Two Simple Shapes by Selena Baca, and it's edited by Selena Baca, so some of the designs are by her and some are by other people. And I'm going to put an asterisk next to this one just because I haven't actually made anything from this book, and I typically don't like to review or recommend pattern books that I haven't made anything from, because one of the things you want to know is how well they instruct you. However, I have read through several of the patterns and they seem to be very well written, and because you're focusing on very simple shapes, I think this is going to be very helpful and useful for you if you just want to make a cute quick top. The designs are really cute. They're really fun. Again, there's like some color work in here, so they're giving you some techniques. There's one top in here, and actually this one on the back cover. The construction of that is fascinating, and I want to try this because it's a completely different shape and sweater construction for me, something I've never done before. So I will still be using this book, even though I'm not necessarily always doing two simple shapes, but there's still something to learn from the book, even if you are further along in your process. And again, that's just kind of the theme you will see running through all of the books that I recommended, that even if they're helping to elevate the beginner. So if you were to make several things from the book, by the time you're done, I don't think you're a beginner anymore. So This is the third book I recommend for beginner garment makers.
Okay, so my next book is a technique book, and it's color knitting. So this is Mastering Color Knitting by Melissa Leitman. She is as prolific as one can be, and it focuses on stranded, intarsia, and double knitting. So if you wanted to work on some color knitting techniques, there are projects. Now, you don't start with this one, but there are projects for people at various levels that will take you through, like something small and simple like that. Precious.
That's cute.
There are charts, so you get used to reading the charts, and she has a good explanation of how to do each technique, plus a selection of patterns that will step you through each technique as you go along in the book.
Knitting is not for me. I'm just looking at some of the pictures and they're like, ooh-wee, nah.
Nah, shit. And if you are a person that, I have a lot of people saying to me what the difficulty is for them is picking colors. There's a discussion of color theory in here that won't put you to sleep. Because I know sometimes when I've taken a couple of classes where they talked about color theory, and the person teaching the class is like having this amazing discussion.
Rapturous experience.
Yes, and I'm just like, blue, green, yellow. But it's a short discussion, but it gives you a really good idea of just the three elements that you need to pick a good color combination, and how using your color wheel will help you at least pick color combinations that always work.
Okay, so my next three books are all Stitch dictionaries, but they're the ones that I use most heavily. And so I said that I learned to read patterns from using a Stitch dictionary, and this is actually the one that I use. It's called The Big Book of Crochet Stitches, and it's by Jean Linehauser and Rita Weiss. And when I first encountered this book, it was actually in a different format. Lisa had actually purchased for our mom a perpetual calendar.
Yeah.
And each page had a different stitch pattern on it. And that's what I used when I started wanting to learn how to read patterns. And I would follow those instructions to make scarves. And I made like a bunch of scarves. And that calendar went out of print. And I was so bummed because ours, spiral bound and, pages are falling out and stuff. But then I found that it was just reprinted in a new format. So this has approximately 365 stitch patterns in it. So you're getting bang for your buck. They are largely very simple for someone who at the time, my skills were very rudimentary, and I was still able, there wasn't anyone that I encountered in the book that I wasn't able to follow or recreate. So again, it's good for beginners, but there's like a little bit of color work in there and a little bit of everything. There's puff stitches. So it's got a lot of variety, and I think it'll be really useful.
Okay, so this next one, I think there are several of these kinds of books out there, and they're all good to have. Okay, have at least one in your arsenal. This is called Knit Fix, Problem Solving for Knitters. So when you run into a problem,
show the back. I love that little back.
Oh yeah, look at that.
It says Knit Fix.
Knit Fix.
That's cute.
It teaches you how to correct twisted stitches, figure out where those extra stitches came from, figure out where those stitches went to. The ones that just mysteriously disappeared. Like they got it.
Like a sock in the laundry.
Yeah, like they went into the TARDIS with Doctor Who. Hide or repair color mistakes, close up holes. And it gives you a lot of good tips about finishing so that your garments look really good. And it's also set up largely in a question and answer format. So it's a problem. I lost my place in the stitch pattern because I can't tell what I'm looking to knit or purl or knit two together or yarn over. And then it just says fix. And here's the fix for that. It's illustrated and photographed. So if you have trouble with a photograph, there's still always an illustration that goes along with it, because sometimes the illustration is clearer. It's easier to see.
When you tried to show me, I had so much trouble counting the rows.
Yeah.
It still isn't quick because one of them, like the one, is it the knit side or the purl side where you count 2 rows?
Oh, garter stitch.
Yeah, and garter.
It takes 2 rows to make 1 row of garter. To make 1 ridge of garter.
That made no sense to me. So,
but it covers all of the major issues you might run into, cables crossed incorrectly. And I'm just opening the book to wherever I happen to be. And
it was a whole thing there on just purling.
That's why I moved from that page.
Yeah, she didn't want to talk about it.
She triggers every time she hears the word purl. How to fix twisted stitches. So if you have something like this on your shelf, and like I said, there are several of them. I have a couple. If you're on your own and you just need the answer to a question, it's probably in one of these books, and it's going to be easy to find. So Knit Fix by Lisa Curtis.
How you get the name wrong? It's Lisa.
I know, right?
Okay, so my next Stitch Dictionary is the Crochet Every Way Stitch Dictionary by Dora Orenstein. And I love this book. I cannot get enough of it because not only does she show you stitch patterns and a variety of stitch patterns, but she shows you how to increase and decrease in pattern.
Oh, yeah.
And she will show you how to increase at the ends of the rows and also how to increase in the middle of the row to do internal shaping. And she shows you how to decrease. Some stitch patterns she will say, well, no, you can't do that in this one. And that's fine because she lets you know before you drive yourself crazy.
Yep.
But you can see that on the cover. See how the images, they get wider, they get narrower, some of them bend. That's what she's showing you how to do. So again, if you just want to do a rectangle, she's got you covered, and that's great for a beginner. If you're trying to step up your game, maybe design something for yourself a little bit, or you want to shape your garment, she's got you covered. And I can't believe when people don't do. I feel like this should be standard practice for all stitch dictionaries, showing people how to increase and decrease in
the
pattern.
Only ones for knitters that I found that just offer you that as a matter of course are the Japanese ones.
I hope Dora Orenstein got paid out the wazoo for this book because
here's a question: did you buy it new?
I did.
That's telling you something because she don't buy nothing, no books new.
I absolutely did. As a matter of fact, we might. Do we have 2 copies? We might have 2 copies because I think I have one and my mom has one. But I cannot recommend it enough, and it is so useful and it's so helpful because if you're just trying to figure out how to design a garment for yourself, you could lose so much time to figure out how to increase and decrease in pattern. And for her to just help you like have that shortcut so that you can worry about all the other millions of things you have to worry about when you're designing a garment and actually making it fit. Oh, like thank you. Just thank you, Dora Orenstein. Thank you. So I highly, 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 highly recommend the Crochet Every Way Stitch Dictionary by Dora Orenstein. And it's got, I didn't know it's the number 125 stitch patterns. So she got you covered.
Yeah. Plus increasing and decreasing the pattern. What?
I can't imagine how long it took to write that book. Oh my God. And the instructions are clear. They're really easy to follow.
Don't think those thoughts. Those thoughts will drive you mad. So I'm kind of inspired to try doing some surface decoration on a few of my upcoming knits. And I was really kind of inspired by this book, Splendid Apparel. But I have this book as a partner to it. Wool Embroidery.
Authors?
Wool Embroidery is Carol Hubert. And Splendid Apparel is Anna Zilborg, aka the Knitting Anarchist. So this book kind of just gives you examples of things you can do as surface decoration on your knitting.
Okay, Anna. What?
And with specific instructions for the things she's showing you. Look at that.
She's making Anarchy look good.
But I've done embroidery in the past, but I've only done embroidery on woven fabric. And I've only used like polyester embroidery thread. So when I ran across this book at a book sale, I picked it up because I already had this idea in my mind because Anna Zilborg incepted me. She did. But I wanted to learn more about the techniques of how to embroider with wool on, a knit fabric. So this is what this book is about. And, it teaches you techniques for transferring your design, and it gives you some things to practice on. So what I think I will be doing is practicing on some of my swatches.
That's pretty.
Yeah, look at that.
See, like that. Don't put no ideas in my head.
Well, you know what? I did an experiment last year. I made these 2 small pouches, right? And what I noticed was cross stitch is better on crochet. It was easy for me to do as an inexperienced embroiderer. And on knitting, duplicate stitch was perfectly good. But I thought because on single crochets, the single crochet is almost square and it's the perfect canvas for cross stitch. And you can get so much detail in cross stitch. So if you wanted to do something like that, I would look at cross stitch first and really work that out. But one of the things Anna Zilborg does with this book is she uses the knitting itself as the framework for the design. So you don't have to transfer anything on. You look at the structures already built into your knitting. Let me hold this close so you can see. And you find places to add the decorative element. And I kind of like that idea too.
Interesting.
Like, you see how this texture is already there? So you build your embroidery into the texture that's already in the thing. Oh, so actually this page is perfect because there it is before she added any embroidery, and here it is on the other page after she added the embroidery. It just brings things to life. So I'm going to be playing around with adding some embroidery to my knits this year.
You can start with something small like a sock that you give someone.
She's been lobbying for a sock.
I like how the Blossom socks came out. They're really cute.
She's been lobbying for a sock. I'm gonna actually eventually have to buckle down. Like, I need to work on my sweater tonight. So let's get on that. Thank you.
Slip me in the queue.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Okay, so my last dictionary is I think it's just called Crochet Patterns Book 300 because it is actually, this one is Chinese, but it's a Chinese translation of a Japanese 6th dictionary that was published by Nihon Vogue, and Nihon is just the Japanese word for Japan. Mm-hmm. So it's Vogue Japan. And so there's no words really because if they were, there any like category labels and things like that, as you can see, they are in Chinese. But stitch diagrams, the whole book is stitch diagrams. And I've mentioned before that I'm pretty much treating this book like a masterclass in learning to read stitch diagrams. If I can get through some of the stitch patterns in this here book, because there are some that are truly challenging, and some like they have multiple stitch patterns on a single page. Right. Some of them, the stitch diagram is so large they have to refer you to a page in the back of the book, like, oh, we couldn't fit it here. Ooh. So look on this page to see the stitch diagram. I feel like if I can make it through, if I can make it there, I can make it anywhere because this is for the learner. This is for the person who is really ready to buckle down and say, okay, here's the thing I don't know how to do, but I'm going to learn how to do it. I can read like, rudimentary stitch patterns, the kinds of things that, you will typically come across. But some of this stuff, I'm just like, how are we doing this? Because there are symbols that are unfamiliar to me. So
that's what I was going to say. When I was working with my Japanese stitch dictionary, there are symbols I've never seen before, only because they do standardized symbols. So what you might want to do is do an image search for that symbol, find out exactly what it means, and then add it to your, add the translation to your book.
Yeah, because I don't think there's even a page where they tell you, because there's a title page and then a table of contents, and then we just jump into there isn't a lot of preamble.
In Chinese knitting and crochet, they're the same way. The symbols are standardized and you're expected to know them.
Okay, so in the back there's a section called point lesson that's like very rare English written in the book, and they're showing you how to do some of the things. So some of these symbols, they are trying to demonstrate what they are. Because some of these I would never have recognized. But like I said, it's just another opportunity to learn. If I can get through this book, I will consider myself a chart reading master. Okay. And I will have a lot of really beautiful stitch patterns under my belt. So I need the time. I really just want to like sit with this book and go through it and practice some of these stitches.
I see you've already got plans. I see you got some flags sticking out.
I do. I sure do. So there's even an envelope stuck in here on one page. So I have like an appointment with this book. So those are my best books for beginner garment makers, and my favorite absolute go-to, use them almost weekly. Use them weekly, almost daily, stitch dictionaries.
And my pile was my basic how to do stuff books. Techniques, yes. How to do stuff in one word. Technique. Yes, brilliant. And my aspirational books, like I said, I want to learn how to embellish my knits with embroidery.
So the overarching theme is learning. It's just like what we want to learn, what we have learned.
And what we are learning.
Yes. So those are our favorite crafting books.
Most of these will be available on Amazon. Some of mine are older. If you have library book sales near you, go out and visit them.
She's found some knitting books that were really expensive, when they went on sale, and she got them for a song. Yeah. So
treasures. Okay. Used books, they're a little hit and miss because a lot of them used bookstores don't carry crafting books of any kind. But hit those library book sales.
Definitely. If you're local, the Cherry Hill library book sale is particularly good for craft books.
Yeah. But if I ignore all the people looking for, the other books, and I look around and make a beeline for the craft books, and I pretty much spend my time there.
So thank you for vlogmasing with us, and we'll see what we come up with for the next video.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Everybody.